Let's get started. First, we have the approval of the March minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Everyone good?
Yes.
Okay, motion to accept?
Second.
So moved.
So move.
So Diane, did you make the motion?
I think.
So we'll say Ron made the
Yes,
motion
yes.
and
Make the motion.
Diane makes the motion, Ron second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Old business, the establishment of board officers. Jack?
So according to the guidelines, there's 5 offices. There's a chairperson, a vice chairperson, a secretary, a treasurer, and a board member at large. And the board member at large actually covers the secretary and treasurer when they're not there. So I'll go first and say that I enjoy taking minutes and sort of doing the computer work. So I volunteer to be secretary.
Yay.
Yeah.
And,
I'll take the treasurer.
okay,
I guess I'll be vice chairman.
okay.
Chairperson.
Chairperson, sorry.
Bring it up to date.
Be
Yes.
chairperson, and then there's still, well, we haven't opened, Nancy O'Brien would be, so when we get someone on board, that person will be on, what's the title?
The member at large.
Member at
Or
large?
we would just reassign in June.
Okay,
Yeah, when things, so for the next couple months, okay. So I make a motion that we accept the officers as we just mentioned, okay?
Second it.
Okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good, okay.
Good. Director's report.
Okay. Hopefully we have plenty of time here. A lot going on. So in terms of general administration, the new director office status, basically I'm now outfitted with a laptop. So that's all good. I'm connected to the printers. I need to reach out to IT again and have them set me up for scanning, which they didn't do yet. I've gone through and organized. And I've created a Council on Aging folder that is now on the network. And I have folders within that, obviously based on whatever topic it is. The old Council on Aging office, I've gone down, I've organized decorations by holiday and season, and I placed them in the corner. I've kind of cleaned it up a little bit more. So I have to find a good storage area for those kinds of things because they don't need to be in that room. I just have to find out where it's.
And what will you be using that room for then?
Well, we can be using that for other events. In other words, we could have multiple events going on. And I'll get to this, but I'm looking at trying to resurrect the foot care program. That's an obvious candidate for that. That's by appointment, it's private. But you could still have something going on in the larger senior center at the same time. So it's kind of a nice use, that blood pressure clinic as well. So anyway, it can be used for any number of reasons. And one of the other things that we could do is you could set up a whole technology education center for seniors in there. So we'll get to that. There's a whole bunch of other things that I've hit upon. But basically, I mean, the decision to move this office up here was Mike Canalis's, so that all the business offices per se are up here. This is where most of us are all located. And people have come to my office to see me. Ned said yesterday he was putting up the sign for the new sign to change the signage, but he didn't get to it. So hopefully the signs will go up pretty soon in the hallway. So it'll be a little more obvious to people. Been working on a database, so that's underway. That's going to take a while. And I'm working from several different lists. So I've got a property ownership list. I've got the age list. And I've got the list that was pulled from the voter registration that has been used for mailings. So I'm working on trying to get that up to date and maybe a little more robust, because I would like in that database also to be people's date of birth, so that we know how old people are. And this should be changing and we should be keeping it up to date. So already with this last mailing of the newsletter, which went out. And it was the quarterly newsletter, so it's April. And I'm presuming another one will go out every quarter. And maybe some flyers in between if we have a reason to disseminate information. But things do come back. So unfortunately, because we're kind of the primary source is voter registration for that, and Terry can pull that by age. She cannot remove anybody from the voter registration list until she hears from some other entity saying they've registered somewhere else. So you can't just take them off of the voter registration. But what we can do, what I am doing, is taking people off when we do get that notification. Or I just had somebody call me from Florida and they got the newsletter and they called and they said, well, we've been in Florida for several years and we're not up there anymore. And I feel bad because it's lovely, but we don't want you wasting your money. So those kinds of, I got also an email from Riverbrook taking 2 ladies off that were still on there. Same thing. Terry's probably not gotten anything about them registering to vote somewhere else. However, Riverbrook knows that they're no longer living here. So they let me know. So as those trickle in, I just keep doing the updates. And so I'm working my way through this. It just takes time.
The bottom line on the database will be communication, or people who have been involved, or people we send what is it?
Everybody that falls into the category of, 60 and over, basically anyone who's eligible for any services we would want to be contacting.
And is a exclusive resident of Stockbridge or a homeowner of Stockbridge or?
No, they don't have to be a homeowner. They just have to live here. They could be part-timers, but those are going to be harder to track down.
They can be part-timers, is that?
Second homeowners.
Second homeowner, sure.
Okay.
On the other hand, we don't necessarily have access to that information unless they're a property owner. If they're a property owner, then we have that information in town hall. But if somebody, it's owned under a different name, say.
Okay.
A lot of them might be. So anyway, so one thing that came up that I became aware of is there is software available. And there's a number of different companies that offer it, but I got an email from myseniorcenter.com. And it's for the management of council on aging centers that allows for automated check-in to programs and events via key fob, provides calendaring, event and program management, and associated reporting. So you can run off, customized reports. And so I have registered for a webinar on April 27th to find out more about that, get a little more about the detailed specs. Apparently, the costing I couldn't find online readily because apparently it's tied to modules that you buy. So depending on what your needs are and what modules you want to buy, it will impact the cost. So, but they do make the statement, and who knows how accurate it is that payback is within a year. So I think that's worth looking into because it also takes care of the whole database problem.
Right.
Right? So it's integrated into your reporting and being able to manage events and report on who attended events. And pretty easy for people to use because they get a key fob and they can just check in. So I'll get more information on that.
There's no way of knowing in advance approximate cost of what that would be?
Well, no, but I'll know on April 27th because I'll ask that question.
Because that could be expensive, very going.
Could be. On the other hand, we have plenty of money and we'll get to, there's a really good grant opportunity that I added to this outline afterwards because I heard about it afterwards.
Could you just repeat the name of the software just for the minutes?
Yeah, this particular one is myseniorcenter.com, but they're not the only providers of this kind of
Thank you.
information. And downstairs I hung up the bulletin board on the wall and I rearranged the furniture a little bit so that when you now enter the main entrance, all of the flyers and handouts and whatnot are right by the door there. So, and hung that up on the wall rather than having it leaning against the wall, sitting on the table. Okay, so program services. I met with Mary Beth McDonough. I've spoken to her a number of times now, of Elder Services of Berkshire County, and I spoke with Sue Doyle of Hospice Care of Western Mass. I met with her and I talked about the services that they offer. Elder Services is going to be offering a Matter of Balance, which I highlighted in that newsletter, and I asked for RSVPs, who's interested in this? And I have heard back so far from 4 people that have responded as being interested in that. And I will be training as a coach for this program. And now it looks like it's changed because apparently the guy who trains the trainers had a death in the family. So I was going to be trained, I think tomorrow, but now they've shifted it. So the training will be April 27th and we might do it all in one day. It's like an 8-hour thing, but we might end up just, instead of doing 2 4-hour sessions, we might do 1 8-hour session, but I'm waiting to hear. So we can tentatively schedule this program, according to Mary Beth, for Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting May 16th for eight sessions, and it's 2 hours a session. And this program basically is designed to try to get people over a fear of falling, to help people with suggestions about how they can alter their environment to help avoid any tripping, falling incidents. And it has some light exercise involved. So I'll know a whole lot more after I get trained, but
Are there a minimum number that we need in order for this to,
that I'm not sure of at this point,
okay,
but early days.
okay.
We have some time yet. So, and let me see, too, it's running for 8 weeks. Final session, what she's projecting would be June 8th. And so a trained instructor from Elder Services and myself would be the people that would be there coaching. So I'd just be there assisting.
Could I just point out something that you said that the training for the webinar for the database and the training for Elder Services coaching is the same day?
Well, it appears to be, but I have to check the times.
Okay.
There's more than one opportunity to go to that webinar.
Okay.
You know, they have multiple dates. It's a marketing effort, so obviously I can just reschedule that if I have to, based on the timing. But none of this is concrete.
Okay.
I'm still waiting to hear back from
And
them.
I'm sorry, I'm taking notes by hand. Mary Beth McDonough is the head of,
She is a representative, yeah.
okay, and the other person that you mentioned the name?
And the other woman her name is Sue Doyle, and she's with Hospice Care of Western Mass.
Thank you.
Let's see, I talked to Mary Beth also yesterday about the farmer's market coupons, and they are not available yet. Hopefully they will come earlier. They came late last year, apparently, and they will be delivered to the Council on Aging office. So previous to this last year, some went up directly to Heaton Court and a few came here. This year they will just come here and hopefully it won't be like August. They should come, she thinks at least by June or July. So, and then the one thing that Sue Doyle from Hospice Care said is they can come in and they could offer, like for the speaker series, they could come in and they could offer an informational session about what hospice care actually entails, which might be interesting. I don't know what your opinions are about all this, because in terms of being a good program to want to put on for that speaker series or not. I'd like to get your feedback on that.
Do you want the feedback now or you want to wait till we get to how each
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Want it now?
Sure, why
I think it's
not?
a very bad idea.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not,
It's a very sensitive individual situation that I don't think we should have for public speaker series.
yeah, instinctively, I kind of felt the same way, and I wanted to hear your feedback because, you know, I think it's interesting because most people probably have a misconception about hospice care. On the other hand, like you say, it's a very sensitive topic, you know, and I wouldn't want anybody being upset by that, so.
I think it's wonderful that this Council on Aging office can offer a link to hospice support.
Right.
But I think that that's where it can stop,
Right, okay.
my opinion.
I agree.
All right, and another thing, and this is another one I want feedback, especially from Ron, was they also offer something called a Veterans Cafe to bring veterans together. And we talked before about a coffee cafe, which I think is a great idea. There's all kinds of things that you could incorporate, disseminating information, and just have it be a social time and a pleasant time. But they offer a Veterans Cafe. So I was hoping that the Memorial Day Parade, that group would be having another meeting, because I'd want to ask the veterans how they felt about that.
There's not that many veterans around.
No, we don't have that many.
We're having a problem with the parade. And we can't get help to, move it either. We get no volunteers
You can't get help to do what
for the
specific?
parade, the Memorial Day Parade.
Okay,
And the veterans that do show up or are very active, we're all over 80. So there's not too much we can do.
well, I mean, this is coming to a a cafe, so, but I get the feeling in my own personal impression would be, knowing the veterans that I know, that they might not be that interested.
No, and historically in other towns, it's, let alone them being veterans, it's tough to get men out to come to activities once they've retired from their careers. I think the original thought that we had to make it a coffee cafe for all,
Right.
as that is, that they're not always real well attended. It depends on if you're offering donuts or granola. But food will get them here. And then we could maybe specify, if we get a core group, we'd like to do a veterans one. Do you think that, not a veteran one every month, just focus on a veterans for one of the, and the cafes should be every week, if we can pull that off, because that'll
Yeah.
get a core of people involved in our senior center. But historically, it's hard to get men out after their careers.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the other thing is, I know I'm married to a veteran, and they don't tend to, he shies away from anything that has to do with veterans, which is why he doesn't volunteer for that. He does not want to be reminded of Vietnam.
There's a lot of them that do not want to be reminded.
Well, and my husband's a veteran also, but in peace times. And so as far as his generation of soldiers, they didn't experience war.
Right.
So he's uncomfortable joining a veterans group or has no interest because he wasn't actually in a war. And I think that's where you miss out on a lot of younger generation veterans, because they just don't feel that they've earned that.
Well, and some of them have, though. I mean, like Kirk. So, yeah, we have a mix, but there's different experiences, and yeah. So anyway, we'll just set that aside, because I just think the
If you take
generic,
out the veterans part, because if you put a veterans cafe, people think, well, that's only for vets.
exactly.
Well,
We're trying
yes.
to get
And that's
them-
what their program is designed to do. And I think it just makes a whole lot more sense for us to do a generic coffee cafe. And then you can utilize that time to disseminate whatever pieces of information we think is going to be useful to people.
Now, did she say how successful these veterans cafes are?
She said they're very popular, but
in say
I would
Pittsfield?
think
Yes.
in much larger communities than
Yes.
ours.
Yes.
So, yeah.
My feeling is to be consistent with the hospice, that, yeah, we have the general cafe, but know that this is a service that is available. Because the moment I saw this, I said, oh, there is a Veterans Cafe available. And so I think if we let people know, leave it up to them to be in, but I don't think that. we
Exactly.
need to-
It's just something that they offer if we were to be interested.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Okay, so in trying to reinstate programs, I've spoken with Jill Sweet about reinstating blood pressure clinic. I didn't get a final answer back from her because they discontinued a Heaton Court. There were only like 2 people showing up, and one was an employee. I'm also looking into reinstating the foot care clinic. So in terms of blood pressure clinic, what I would like to do, and I've posed to her, but I haven't gotten verification back from her, is I'd like to keep it on the same day and time. So I think it was Mondays at 10:30 or something like that. So whatever that day and time was, the only thing that then would change would be its location, and it would be here in the senior center. And then it's been a lot of talk back and forth now with Tri-Town Health, including Jill Sweet, about reinstating the foot care clinic. So it's been a problem. We have the person that used to do it here is not completely retired, but she is not taking on anything new. She will be, I talked to her, she will be completely retiring in December. Then there's another person who's doing it right now, and I don't have her name here, but she's doing it in Lee. She's close to retirement. And let me see. And I did talk to Andrea yesterday, and so I kind of brought this up with her and let her know that this was going on. Bottom line is I found, let's see, Jane Kelly is the person who used to do it for us in the past. And she will see patients in her home in Richmond, but I would like to have it reinstated here because I hear it was very, very popular. And we have the old office that we can use.
And clarification, because what exactly does the foot care clinic, did it do?
It's basically, you have to be certified. And
Be certified to attend it?
you have to be a certified foot care
To run it?
to do it,
To do it, okay.
actually provide the service.
Okay.
So they come in and obviously they take care of people's feet.
That wasn't so obvious to me. What did they do? Do they give medical advice or,
They do, and I'm assuming that they do, they will trim nails, et cetera, et cetera.
They
But they're
clean
going
your
to
feet up.
address,
Again.
clean your feet up. And a lot of this is around the kinds of problems. You have to understand that there's a lot of medical problems caused by, say, like diabetes. And it's a very good idea to have someone, a trained person, a nurse, these women are all nurses, have a nurse who is trained in foot care so that they can take a look and they can advise you in terms of, you really need to see your doctor about this, or we can take care of this problem, but physically it's not a pedicure. It's somebody who's actually caring for your feet. And they are certified specifically to do.
so they're doing what a podiatrist would do?
I don't know what a podiatrist does.
Well, they're a medical doctor who is indeed certified as a medical doctor and can give foot care. And so far, that's a message that I got that this clinic does. So I would.
I
love
think it's
someone-
at the level of nursing care for feet, not an actual podiatrist, like they would do.
My request
everybody
is that
else.
we find out for next meeting just what it goes on.
Good idea.
Rather than I think and I don't know.
Okay.
Because
Because I've never experienced it, so I don't know firsthand. I don't know
if you
anything.
don't mind putting on that, task for you to take care of for next time, so you can be, and we have it suggested for next time to discuss all the services that are listed on the website right now. So this will just fit right into where we're going. Thank
At
you.
any rate, in talking to Jim Willis, basically he indicated to me, I had found out of Greenfield, Mass, there is a group and they are footcarebynurses.net. And I spoke to them, I reached out to them, I heard back, I've spoken with them on the phone and I've gotten an email. And it turns out that Lennox is already using Foot Care by Nurses, so they're using that same company. In talking to Jim, he thinks there might be some kind of, cost offset that he could we could take advantage of through Tri-Town Health. And particularly if we have his 3 towns are all pretty much on the same page. So we've been going back and forth for the last 2 days in emails, he and Jill Sweet and and I think what he's going to do is he's going to arrange either a Zoom meeting or a conference call next week so we can all discuss what's the best path forward. But I have a feeling that it makes the most sense if all 3 towns are actually utilizing that same service provider, that there might be a financial benefit for us. And it would be nice because it would be consistent.
If we resumed using the provider that we've done before, how much did that cost?
We can't. she won't take on anyone else.
And she's
going to be
retiring soon.
retiring in December.
No, but how much would that have cost the town compared to what this other?
I don't know what she charges now. I have the list in my office, and I don't even know if this is up to date. It came from Elder Services, but it's around $40 or so, 35, 20, anywhere from $25 to $40 is what.
And it has always been provided by the town as a free service to our
That-
seniors?
I don't know, and that
Yeah.
was my question to you, because I don't know historically, did we cover the whole cost? Where did that money come from? Was it budgeted or did it come out of the grant? That I didn't know, so, or maybe my canals, but I think I've asked you already and you didn't know the answer.
So one of the problems with any of this is by the time I got here, we were well into COVID, so I never experienced what exactly the Council on Aging was doing, what programs were free, what offered charges, what the rest. So the great news is you get to recreate it the way you guys want it. I wouldn't necessarily be beholden to what we've done in the past. If we think it's a service that should be provided and people can take advantage of, foot care clinics are very common in most Council on Aging. It is
Right.
a nursing level care of feet, and then if there are issues, they refer them to podiatrists and others. So.
Right, well, that would be something to research with other local senior centers, Council on Aging.
I've talked to several of them.
Okay, and did you ask if they pay for it and provide it as a service, or the clients actually come?
No, we didn't
Okay.
get into that level of detail. My first shot at speaking with them was, who are you using?
Right. Well, that would be something for the future to know also, because that would affect our budget. It's a wonderful service
Right.
to provide for our seniors, but we will have a budget. And maybe they could do a copay or insurance.
And that is one option that some places will do, so that they cover a certain amount of cost, and then it's like a copay.
Exactly.
The patient, because all of this has to be scheduled. In other words, you have to make an appointment. Now, what they told me in terms of, in general, about their pricing, for care by nurses, is what they would do is charge $45 an hour plus $25 per person. And they said that their normal hourly rate is $95, but they split it this way to reduce their exposure if only, one person shows up. But I think, and they didn't mention this on the phone, but I think they may also have a minimum number of hours.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could we do this next meeting and could part of the report be a comprehensive presentation of exactly what a clinic would do? Rather than just discussing details, because I think as a part of the board's agenda is to say, Chris said that it's a wonderful opportunity. I don't know if it is or not, and I think we have to discuss that. So if we could put this on to next meeting and present to us just what a clinic would do, how you see it here, and all the details that you're. Sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, so moving on to events. So March 15th, the St. Patrick's Day, we had that big snowstorm and we had to postpone. And we had 32 RSVPs. We ended up serving, people who actually showed up were 23. So we actually ended up doing it on the 17th, which was St. Patrick's Day, and Ron was wonderful and helped. So I wanted to extend my thanks to him. And several other people. Michael Blay gave an informational session on available tax relief programs that were still, at that point, there was still about 2 weeks for people to apply. So it seemed like a timely topic. But also, I really need to thank Joanne Conroy and Diane Royce for helping me prep the day before. And I cooked everything. And Diane of Stockbridge Country Inn was the person who actually provided all the desserts. So she went above and beyond. Chocolate, Guinness chocolate, bundt cake, brownies, chocolate cupcakes, and sugar cookies. So we had a huge variety of desserts. I baked and donated the Irish soda bread. And we had, amazingly, had 2 volunteers that came in from West Stockbridge. Lovely couple, Kathy Quinlan and her husband, Steve. And they assisted in serving and cleaning up, and they were really, I thought they were just such nice people. But very sweet, very willing to help out. And thank you to Jack for providing the means. We did have background music, so I was able to do that and it was great. But everybody seemed to have a good time. They hung around for quite a while we were cleaning up. Basically, I checked yesterday, $200 was spent on the food, and we certainly have enough leftovers to create at least one more meal, and or a couple of soups. So at very minimal expense. So I've got everything in the freezer.
Good.
We'll get ready for the next one. But the cost was very low per person. I think it came out to $6 and something, and then we still have leftovers, so kind of reduce that a little bit more. April 19th, the police department is going to be speaking, and we will also cover Code Red. I have to pull together all the information about that, but try to encourage people to get signed up for that.
And you know, we already
emergency.
had the police before.
Yes, and apparently nobody knew and no one showed up. So anyway, they're coming in again. And we're going to cover Code Red, and I want to encourage people to sign up for emergency management, communications, because a lot of people are not on there. We don't have a very high, contingent of people that are actually signed up for that.
And how many people do you have signed up for the luncheon thus far? How many people do you have
So
signed up?
far, we have 4 RSVPs.
4? Oh. Well,
So we'll see, but I'm anticipating.
there's a week to go.
There's a week to go, plus there is kind of a core group. I mean, Ron probably knows because we saw all those people at, St. Patrick's Day thing. So there's kind of a core group that shows up over and above this 4. Now, I met with Nancy Wilcox and she and I talked about trips. And she wants you to know that she needs 3 to 4 months of lead time to schedule any trip. And so she thinks that if we're aiming for a trip in July or August, she would plan on a cruise.
And by cruise, you mean
Well, by
in a
cruise,
local
I think she
lake
means-
or on our Massachusetts coast?
I think what she means, yes, is, a
Okay.
local New
All right,
England
not-
kind
We're
of.
not doing a cruise to
No.
the Caribbean.
We're not going to the Caribbean. But no, I think what she's thinking is something off of Cape Cod or, something like that. Scheduling for fall, she recommends a historic site trip. She thinks that would be popular. And for December, she strongly recommends the Radio City Rockettes. So she has given me a whole bunch that she really likes. So there was the Rockettes, which I thought that was a nice idea for, the holidays. And I think I got one of those for all of you. And let's see. Anyway, this is her whole list, and I made a copy of everything she gave me. And then what just came in the other day, I think it was yesterday, or the day before, Ride the Rails, Berkshire Train Experience, a day trip. Yep. Round trip community transportation, if we need it. I talked to Mike about the possibility of using the Great Barrington Transportation, so I have to call them and see, would it be available to use their vans for that kind of transportation? You ride on the Berkshire Scenic Railway, you visit Balderdash Cellars Winery with a tasting, a sumptuous lunch at a fine local restaurant. So anyway, that's another one that just came in.
You would have to attend this with them in case anyone gets tipsy.
I might be the person to see at that point.
I'm sorry, again, clarification for me, because are we proceeding with trips because it's been done in the past? Or, do we approve the trips are even part of the program or?
Apparently done it in the past, and there are a lot of other council on aging in the area that have very popular trips. It's in Great Barrington. I think Otis has been sold out apparently, and whatever it is that they're offering, which I would understand if you live in Otis and Beckett, is you probably need to get out of town sometimes. But no, apparently they're very popular.
There is interest here. There are seniors that have asked me about it, doing trips. It's a nice thing to do.
Okay.
If we get the interest, though, it's getting people,
Oh,
enough
exactly.
people to
You have
sign
to
up
get
to
enough
make it,
people. Exactly.
cost effective and such, yeah.
Exactly.
And they would pay their way for this. We would not be
Yes.
providing that
Yeah,
for free.
it's
I don't
just
see any
Nancy.
casinos. I don't see any casinos on your trips.
It's Nancy Wilcox, so, and I did mention it to her, I promise. And yeah, and I have no problem with that. I think that if there's an interest and people want to go to a casino somewhere, then she should look at what are the possibilities, because you got Foxwoods that's not that far away. I mean, there's a number of them, so. And I think Patrick had a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, just a quick thing, because I have to go back to work. With all the new nice deck chairs at the beach, do you guys do a sort of out, like an hour or two at the beach a couple times in the summer? And the other thing I was going to say is there's 8 new kayak racks, and which is a great expansion of the spaces for kayak. And if the Council on Aging wanted to get a couple of kayaks for seniors and reserve those racks, I would certainly support that. And
Fun.
it's just maybe another thing to think about. If you guys want them, just let us know, because, we probably can help fund them and whatever. And Roxanne, I want to tell you, the newsletter looked great. Thank you. You did a really nice job on that.
You
Thank you.
did do a nice job on that.
Thank you.
All right, I gotta go. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
And, oh yeah, in terms of the newsletters, we started out, I think there were 667 names in the list I had. It came down to 654, and it's been culled again since, so, because we've gotten returns. Let me see, what else? One thing that I mentioned in my Canales, these mailings, and I think in general in town hall, but certainly for Council on Aging, if you have one person here, it does make sense to have this be a senior work-off program to assist in mailings, because it's a lot of, just sitting, folding, stuffing, blah, 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 running through the postage. So I thought that's a great opportunity for a senior work-off program, which of course benefits our seniors. So I think you need to.
What is a senior work-off program, and how would it benefit our seniors?
A senior work-off program is something we've had in town for quite a long time, but haven't implemented. And basically it is a way for seniors to work off, and Mike can answer this in a lot of detail, but it's a way for seniors to do some work for the town and get credit, and they get basically money off on their taxes. So it's a tax reduction benefit. Mike, you want to fill in the details?
Yeah, so we'll be starting, getting that program back up and running. Once again, this was a program that was used, not a lot, but was used prior to COVID. And then during the COVID years, it all was shut down. So getting it back where we would have positions, you can earn up to $1,500 off of your taxes. It's basically 100 hours of work at $15 an hour. You get credit for it. And what the town has to do is come up with jobs that the person would fill in. And those could be, in the past, they've been used from everything. They used to have somebody come in and photocopy articles in the papers that were Stockbridge related. Of course, that's not a job we need anymore because it's all digital. We can just pull up, go and search that. But you can come up with jobs like that. They can be answering the phones. They could be assisting, with whatever. So probably, at least one position with the Council on Aging for somebody to earn, which would assist with the flyers going out, could assist with programming, could assist with the rest. But as we get this up and running, I'll be going to the different departments and saying, what can we use them for? And obviously we're using them for programs that are age appropriate work. We're not gonna put somebody out there shoveling snow and stuff like that, but programs such as, just like Roxanne said, assisting with the flyers, assisting with other things, so.
So it's a town-run program,
Yeah, through
and
the Board of
the
Assessors.
Council on Aging would benefit from that, but.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And then you'll work out whether that person could be assigned to Council on Aging for one day a week, and then you could have different jobs between just the flyers. So that it could be a standard
100
weekly
hours.
thing that they can count on, rather than just being during newsletter time quarterly, you could,
Well, you have to understand, we do a lot of other mailings out of town hall, so.
so it could be for all of that,
Exactly.
right?
When I was working on these newsletters, it was the same time that the tax bills were getting ready to go out. So we had to take turns using the postage machine, for instance. But yeah, that was when it dawned on me. I'm like, whoa, Yeah, I can see how much time Christina's spending on this. I can see how much time I'm spending on this. This is a great opportunity
Absolutely.
for this. So anyway, moving on. So the other big thing that I wanted to bring up is I did get wind of a grant opportunity. Oh, no, I don't want to skip over these things. So let me see. No, it's grants up to $100,000 per Council on Aging. And it's available for COAs, Massachusetts, to purchase devices, software, or broadband for older adults and/or provide training and support for older adults to enhance their digital literacy. So this kind of ties into, you could set up a little center for digital literacy in that room where you've got, computers, et cetera. We update the equipment. And application has to be before 5 p.m. on May 22nd, 2023. COAs representing gateway cities and rural communities are encouraged to apply. So I'm thinking that we should apply for this. Technology purchases should emphasize devices, software, and broadband for older adults. Then we'll talk about this. But equipment to help the COA support digital literacy is also permitted. So the big question is what does that entail? I'm not sure what they mean by that. Eligible items for purchase include but are not limited to tablets, laptops, computers, monitors, keyboards, computer mouses, speech to text, text to speech software, mobile hotspots or stipends for home internet. Technology training and support should improve older adults' digital literacy and help them use devices in a meaningful way. So I think there's plenty of people that could use some help with even just
Oh,
their
yes.
phones.
Oh, yes. I had someone just this week
Yeah.
when we were doing walking club that has the old closed phone and she can't do emailing or texting or anything. And I was going to present to you that we need to offer some education
Yeah.
for our elders.
So, yeah, I completely agree. And my background was in IT. So when it comes to like email and your computer, I'm a built-in resource here. So, and we have plenty of people in town that are good resources. So we might be able to garner some volunteers. Ron?
Michael, what happened to all the computers we had downstairs in the senior center?
Some of the towers are up in the back room up here. A lot of them were outdated. We also didn't have the lockouts for the hard drives and other stuff. But I have spoken to our computer vendor before, and what he would do is possibly take some that we get from that he refurbishes and then get them back in there. So if we had to, but the ones that were down there were they were pretty old.
They were pretty old.
So, because we're talking, that was purchased probably 10 years ago, which 10-year computers are pretty old. But we have some of the towers from the police department, because we switched over everything in town hall to laptops. So we could use some of the older towers. And what you do is you get what's called a locking hard drive, so that people can't save anything to the hard drive, but you can use the computers. Any public computer should be set up that way. You see those in libraries and other places where you can use the computer, but you actually can't save anything onto the computer and that. So, yeah. We can get that, but this grant opportunity is something the town will definitely explore.
Oh,
So.
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's,
So-
Could I ask a procedural thing? Roxanne has presented to us that there's a grant opportunity, all right? Do we need to do any kind of approval of that, or just say blessing, just?
you will write the grant.
Yeah, I can.
And we could wait until May's meeting because it's not due till the 22nd and have more details from you on the actual grant process and such. Or we could give her our approval today to get the process going and then have her update us for the next meeting. I would think would be the way to go.
Yeah, I personally feel it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm just asking procedurally. Roxanne presents something to us. We informally say, go for it.
Yes.
And then, okay, so that's,
I can go and get the application, which is where you find all the detail. Okay? Everything that you have to supply, every question that you have to answer, and basically fill that out and then present it to you before it's actually submitted.
Okay.
So
Michael?
the sooner you get it in, the better chance we have of getting the money.
That's true, I would guess. That's usually true. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have, procedure that would, yes, right, say it should be giving you guys the application, what it is, and the rest. And the big one is the question of whether or not it has any matching funds requirements. That would,
Yes.
that would really kick off approvals that would not be needed. So some grants are 100%, some grants are you have to have 25% matching, which then, okay, where's the match come from? Does the select board need to appropriate money for it? Does it have to be? So those are, the details. So this had just come out. I know Roxanne had.
Just saw it, yeah.
Yeah,
you just saw it right now?
yeah.
Just saw it yesterday.
Okay. Then my feeling is if you could make a copy of what you saw, because I personally am not nearly as good at just listening to things and saying, go ahead, that I just need to take a moment to look at it and perhaps help you. And if I can see some, or our treasurer can see some fine print that says, ooh, matching, so it's,
Yeah, you have to get to the actual application before you get to the nuts and bolts of everything they're going to ask for. Based on my experience in the past, looking at the grants. But I can certainly, I can send it to all of you, the link.
Please do.
And, there's a website and you can kind of drill down in on that. And then in the meantime, I'll go and I'll find my way to the actual application. And then once I get that, I can send that.
okay.
And that's pretty much all I have, except that I just wanted to let you know we're in pretty good shape financially. So in terms of our accounts, the gift account, we have $350 still, which is what it's been. We have $313.51 in state grant funds, and we have $22,407.90.
Could you repeat that number, please?
$22,407.90.
And what account is that? What is that?
And this is fund balance, elder affairs. This is because we weren't spending any money during COVID.
Right. And none of that is taken away after a certain amount of time if we are not using it.
Right.
Okay.
The first number that you said was 360 and it's what?
It was 350.
350. And what account is that?
And that is a gift account ending balance. And it's also labeled as COA donation. So it's donations that have come in.
Now, are those donations that have come in previously, say before COVID, whatever?
I don't
Is
know
somebody
when they came in.
acknowledging when we do get donations, a thank you?
Donations, yes, we acknowledge donations.
Okay, without having a director and the council on aging involved. Thank you, Michael.
Now, a select board usually does thank yous of any kind of donation that comes in to the town.
Even if it is for
We
the
have to
council on
accept it
aging.
as a
Yeah.
gift.
Okay,
The select board is the only board that can accept gifts.
Oh, okay.
Money goes into,
good to know.
yeah.
Okay.
Could you, backing up again, sorry, it's my note taking. Could you explain to me who Nancy Wilcox is and what her relationship to preparing trips and COA is? Like, why has she been offered the position of organizing trips?
I have not offered anything to anyone. She has apparently been doing this for years, is my understanding, prior to COVID.
Doing what?
Organizing trips, and she also handles brown bag lunches. And she's a volunteer. She is, I don't know that she's a lifetime. Is she a native? Close to it. You know Nancy Wilcox. She lives on 183. She's married to Rick Wilcox, who was our police chief. I've known her.
I don't know whether she was
50 years.
here or down county somewhere.
Or where?
or down county, Great Barrington or down through there, but I think she is native to Massachusetts, we'll put it that way.
Right, and she's lived in Stockbridge for at least
Yeah.
50 years, because I've known her that long, so.
I don't know if, how many trips she did under Liz, if Liz was doing that, but she has done it for other towns, for churches, organizations. She's a woman that loves to do tours, do bus tours, and she enjoys putting them together. So she's a great asset for us, for you especially, that she's
Yeah, she's
willing to
great.
do all the work for it.
Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention, my notes got extensive. I got tired of typing. One other thing with the brown bag lunches is she does handle the brown bag lunches.
Right.
Right now, they are being delivered to Heaton Court. So I talked to Andrea, and I just have to find the right contact person to contact at the Food Bank of Western Mass to see if we can get the location, the drop-off location changed back to Town Hall, which I think will be a relief for you because it's one big truck and easy to do here. And have indicated that for those meals that the bags that need to go up to Heaton Court, we can get them to Heaton Court. But I think it makes a lot of sense to bring it back into here.
Okay.
Also, the Meals on Wheels coming back into Town Hall as well.
When was it ever down here? I always thought the brown bags were up at Heaton Court.
Not always. At least I've been told.
When you came on board and Liz was around, were you doing it up at Heaton then?
Yes.
Okay, so she,
Liz used our space.
oh, okay.
What I was told was because the majority of the bags stayed there, that's why they did it. We don't have a lot of parking, so then the volunteers come, it's one day a week. So it gets a little crowded in there.
Oh,
So
yes.
I don't know that the tenants are going to miss it, and then we have the big truck back in and unload. I mean, we'll do it, we'll continue to do it if that's what everybody wants. I'm okay with it coming down here though.
Good.
Yeah,
Now,
and
you mentioned quickly you're bringing Meals on Wheels back here. You're taking it out of Heaton Court?
no, it would still be there.
Okay, so what is your plan for that? Or have you not, do you want another month to
I haven't.
organize it and discuss it with us? Or?
Yeah, because that should take more time.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it would be nice to bring it back here. Another thing about the brown bag lunch is Nancy was taking care of, apparently, according to Liz, she wanted 2 people removed because they weren't showing up for the brown bag. And this, of course, was at Heaton Court. And one of those people, I'm not sure, maybe he couldn't make it up the hill because he rides a scooter. I haven't, and I've tried calling both of these people. So the numbers that we have for them on record are not correct. So I'm literally just going to go to their, I know where they live. I will go and I will ask, do they still want to be part of the brown bag lunch program? And if we bring it into town hall, will you be able to come and pick up, your groceries? So I'm going to reach out to those people. I don't like the idea that people were taken off and they're, without knowing the reason why. They've been asked to come off.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to know.
I think Amanda, the resident service coordinator, she has some information on how to sign people up. There is an application to do. Because I know she's got a couple other people at Heaton Court on there for a bag. Just,
She has new ones?
she knows where the application is.
Okay.
To fill it out, so I can connect you with her.
Okay, well, I have applications.
Oh, you have them?
I do. There was a file of some of the, I don't know if they're up to date though. Because some of the things that I have that are in files, I don't know how many years back they go. And knowing organizations, they can change their application format and whatever. So I can check with her. So it would be Amanda I talked to.
Yep, Amanda has the information on how to get people back on the list for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And in the future, I'm sorry, in the future, it wouldn't be Amanda doing it, it would be you doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Getting people on brown bag and updating the applications, making sure, okay.
Right.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, I hate to be redundant, but part of the plan for next month is to go over all of the services and to clearly state what's going on and whether we think what's going on is really really okay? Or do we have other, of course, with your suggestions, how's it going to operate? So if you can put brown bag lunches again on the agenda, if that's okay with everybody, that the plan was to discuss activities this meeting and services next meeting. So I think that what we need to do is know what is going on.
Kind of done it backwards. We've been doing services, brown bag, foot, doctor, services.
Yeah, well, it's okay. No, it's a part of Roxanne's report. That's
Right,
fine. That's
right.
fine. But again, just from my logical mind, that I really need to know, first of all, what the brown bag is. Of course, I've read it and what's on the website and everything. But my first question is it still going on? And what form does it take? And how much does it cost us?
Of course.
And who's in charge of it? And so you said now that Nancy Wilcox is in charge of trips and brown bag. Does that mean that Nancy goes to you and then you give us the report of what's happened, or do we deal directly with Nancy? I don't
Want to know the cost? Certainly the next time I'll come in with a cost. We do get invoices, so I can bring in the cost for the brown bag.
And Roxanne, excuse me, I don't think that has to happen every month, but it's part of I was going to say regurgitation, but
Reorganization. Right.
the reorganization that, it's part of our plan, I think, to say, okay, this is what's going on. Let's continue. It's really wonderful. And the fact that Nancy Wilcox is volunteering, that's absolutely great, but is it she who says, let's plan this trip and do we need to approve? Just that.
We need to approve the trips.
Yeah.
And that's what she's looking at.
Yeah.
She's giving us notice that she needs, on approving a trip, she needs 3 to 4 months in advance.
Okay,
Right,
excellent.
right.
Good.
Or any suggestions that you have about any of these things, obviously, including trips, like Ron mentioned.
I don't go to the casinos, but
I've
heard a lot of people around here do.
I
Right,
know.
Yeah.
a lot of people. And
That particular point is one that I would like to thoroughly discuss in terms of casino trips and how we feel about it and how other towns feel about it and have successes is it up to the individual to bring a limit, or are we feeding addictions? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I just think it's something
Yes.
worth discussing.
Okay, so that's basically what I have, so.
Now, you mentioned under newsletters and communication, should it be quarterly? And that gets back to activities and luncheons, which is where we first started. If you're only going to do a quarterly newsletter, you would have to have your lectures and your luncheons planned 3 months in advance, which should be anyways, to get lecturers or entertainers or whatever. So you would need to do a quarterly newsletter with three months.
Well, not necessarily, because that doesn't have to be the only means of communication. And the only reason I'm calling it quarterly is that's what we have done here traditionally. There was a quarterly newsletter.
I call you up on that because, I was on the Council on Aging with these two and for 4 years. And we had one meeting and there was one newsletter sent out in 4 years. So traditionally it wasn't done under Liz.
Well, we were in COVID for several of those years, but it doesn't have to be the only means of communication. The other means of communication is you could just do a flyer like you have done.
Right.
Where it's a one pager and it's giving you all the updates, printed, you did it printed front and back. It's very effective. You just send it out to everybody. So it doesn't mean that the newsletter is more work. It's a little more robust. You've got more that you're putting into it.
Yes.
But again, we can do it on whatever schedule.
But then there's the
makes
cost
sense.
with it. We were under when we did our flyers and such, we were very aware of the cost for mailings and with mailings, how much are mailings? You could let us know, okay, how much did it cost for your newsletter versus if we send a flyer out, So we do that quarterly, and then we do a flyer once a month for whatever your luncheon is going to be. What is the cost for all of that? And as much as you say we have $22,000, if we start getting better lecturers in, more interesting entertainment and such, that money could go fast. So we need to know,
Well, I can come in the next time and give you the cost comparison of the cost of what you were sending out as the flyers,
That's
what
what
it
I'm
costs per
asking.
piece and what it costs per piece for what was just sent out as a newsletter.
Yes.
You can do that.
okay.
Is it your suggestion then that, that the Council of Aging send out a quarterly newsletter and a monthly flyer? Is that your
I'm
suggestion?
not saying that. I'm saying that traditionally, my understanding was we did a quarterly newsletter. That's the only reason I've mentioned quarterly. We can send out one a year, we can send out none a year, we can send out 4 a year. That's up to you.
Good.
Certainly, it makes sense to look at what the requisite cost is based on what you're actually sending out. So you can do a cost comparison. And the more that we clean up our mailing list, the less money we're going to be wasting. Because I can tell you, a lot of money does get wasted on postage in this town hall, not
Yes.
just on this.
Plus the postage is going to go up again.
Yes, I read that this
Well, and the
morning.
other thing is to look at doing bulk rate mailings. Just send it to everybody in town, might end up being cheaper to put it in every mailbox under bulk mailing, rate mailings. But that's the cost comparison we can do.
That's
We
what
still had the
bring
bulk
us next
mail.
month.
Permit.
I don't think we do anymore than that. There was a whole bunch of changes around bulk mailing and the rest, so. Yeah, I know the one Roxanne's referring to a lot of times is just, right, they just mail to every.
Right, goes in every
single
box.
person regardless.
Right. And then it's costing paper, it's costing, yeah, it's,
Which doesn't benefit the town except for, like with tax bills and stuff, because it's not going to every resident, it's going to all types of, wherever the LLC's located or anything else, so, yeah, I don't believe we have that anymore, but you still can do a bulk mailing, and sometimes a flyer, that's why you see political flyers and stuff, sometimes that's cheaper,
Yeah.
even with all the paper, than trying to, separate out. But in that case, it would go to every home.
right.
No, it doesn't necessarily go to every home. The way, because I've done this. And basically, if you do the bulk rate, it's really easy when you've got, like us, post office boxes. So basically, the bulk rate, you do it, you got a special, you've probably seen it on some of the things that you get in the mail. But basically, it just goes into every single post office box.
Yeah, the postal
Doesn't go
paper.
to everybody in town because there are plenty of people in this town that they don't have a post office box here. They will have a post office box in Lenox, or they will use rural delivery out of Great Barrington, out of West Stockbridge, out of Lee, out of West Stockbridge. So there's quite a number of people who get their mail other ways. Now, if you still want to send to those seniors, then I have them segregated. They're in there and they're sorted by zip code. And so we have those addresses. And those are still going to cost you whatever, 60 cent, whatever the stamp costs at the time. But it does, I think, reduce your cost if you do that bulk mailing, because then all they're doing is they're taking a stack of things that it could just be a folded piece of paper right? They're just sticking it in everybody's box.
Doesn't the shopper's guide do that, do mailings?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they could do the whole thing
So
in
it's worth looking at in terms of saving money.
1,600 patron, or I don't know how many patrons they have over there now.
So we
Say-
put that on
say
for
1,000.
next month.
Bam,
Sure.
and it goes.
If with the cost exploration next time, do we have particular plans right now or feelings as to what we should look for in newsletters and flyers? Or do you think it should be based exclusively on the money?
No, of course not exclusively on the money. As far as detail in our.
Getting information out
The
to,
information on the flyer was wonderful, and I think that's what it's all about, is to have a lot of informational things in an actual newsletter. So I think that's a must. But I'm also concerned that, as I said, we need to keep people coming in, we need to let them know what, for instance, what is next month's luncheon plan? Or 2 months from now for your lecturer, your entertainment, whatever.
Right. But like I said, I think that's where a flyer comes in.
Absolutely. If we can do all of that and that gets down to cost once again or whatever, so we can discuss it
Right.
next month as far as cost to do both or.
I mean, the other thing is we do have all these racks downstairs in town hall. We have racks at the transfer station. There's always the ability with certain businesses that they will actually put up a
Oh,
flyer
yes.
for you. And so places where people frequent.
Right.
And so it's another way to disseminate this. Doesn't really cost you anything but the cost of the paper and the ink.
Right.
So,
And physical hours and time. So people who would go around and spread that, we wouldn't want to dump that on you. Is that perhaps part of the senior work off, to deliver the flyers or?
yeah.
Could be.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So volunteers.
But I mean, I go to the dump just like everybody else. So I don't have any problem taking flyers down to the dump. Or I'm in town hall. It's walking down the stairs and putting it in a receptacle where hopefully people will see it. Putting them out on the table in the senior center. So when they come to bingo, which is a big crowd, that they see that it's there. It's posted. It's on the bulletin board. Here they are. You can walk away with one in your hand. So.
At the big crowd bingo, do you make announcements as to what, or does anyone make announcements as to what's happening? Because that would be listed under word of mouth communication.
Last time I had an issue with, we didn't have any access for for this back entrance, which I didn't know. So that was all my time, was getting people in and getting people out physically.
So let me question it this way. In the future, do you think that the bingo is a good place to spread by word of mouth?
Any of these events, absolutely.
Well, what I used to do for our months of starting is I would go in and speak with them every week. So you're here on Tuesdays, correct? And I would go in and announce what was going on.
Okay.
And I think that's a good way to get some of the bingo people going and involved if you show some speaking interest that you're willing to go in there and chat with them and it's a matter of salesmanship to sell what else we offer besides bingo. Because a lot of those people just come for bingo. That's it. It's part of being a director to sell them on everything else that you have to offer.
I did have an inquiry this time. And so there's apparently an interest in, number one, somebody wanted to know, they don't knit, but they crochet, and they wanted to know if they could come. And I said, of course you can. But there's also an interest for doing something that is like that, fiber related, craft related in the evening. So I have to determine what would be a good evening to do something like that. Because there's been a couple of people who have mentioned
And
that.
that is the kind of things we want to bring people in. As I've told you before, we
Right.
want games, we want anything that can bring these people in to feel comfortable in our senior center. That is their go-to place to go is not just for information and lectures.
On the calendar, I did not notice that what the Wednesday luncheon was printed on it and the time.
Yeah, it's on there and
Is it?
says RSVP, yeah.
I'll have to go back and look.
Well, me too. I'm wondering if there's a wrong version down there or something.
And so getting back to details now, every month, I think we would like to know what your plans are for the following month's lunch. So do you have a plan yet for May's lunch?
Well, it's not a concrete plan. My idea is, I would like it to be, one of my thoughts is I want to really push good nutrition. So I kind of looking, because of the time of year it is, if I can get someone to come in from Botanical Garden or wherever, to come in and talk about gardening, and also maybe in conjunction with someone who can address good nutrition and the kinds of things that you can grow and the various ways that you can grow things, because you don't have to be capable of handling a big garden. You can do, on your deck, you can have a couple of pots. And what should they grow? And what's easy to grow? What's nutritious to grow? So that's where I'm going with it. That's what I'm thinking about doing at this point.
Okay, because right now it's a month away, and if you're gonna get someone from the botanical garden and firm things up, garden instead of
Well,
garden.
not necessarily them, but there's several options. There's obviously, we have all the different nurseries around. Plenty of people that I can tap into and find somebody who's available.
Okay. Are we all set with the directors? Oh, Andrea, I'm sorry. Go.
I don't know, we spoke about this, but if you can be sure to send me the flyers as well, so I can get them up for you.
Absolutely. Paged, excuse me.
Okay, we need her back.
All right.
I'm gonna take a bathroom break.
Okay.
Nancy Wilcox is here with.
What? Don't say it. No.
Nancy probably wants to speak with us about trips and things.
Bad timing.
We could put her on for next one.
I think, well, do we vote on her report?
Yeah. Nancy's downstairs with the.
That was quick.
Anyway, okay. Sorry.
Okay, we don't need to vote on the director's report. Oh, we need Jack. Okay, we're waiting on Jack.
So do we actually say whether we're gonna have a quarterly newsletter or?
I think she's gonna get back with us on that. And I'd like to see, and not just for my purpose, but I'm sure Ron would, as our treasurer, I would like to see the budget in writing, so he can have that too. Wouldn't you?
Well, obviously, you can ask for that from Cheryl at any time.
Well, it would be nice if we could count on that for
Here
our
it is.
monthly
I have
director's
it.
report. Okay,
And I can give this to you. It's just, this is the actual printout. And so, but it's a little confusing because the headings are always after. But anyway, so it came out with others that she, but there it is.
there you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
Hey, he's back.
Jack's back.
Jack's back.
I'll write that down in the minutes.
All right, so director's report is done. Do you have any questions, Jack?
None other than the ones I brought up, and had to be about 16 that I brought up.
Okay. Okay. Do you have anything, Diane?
I just have one question for Roxanne. You've announced that you're running for select person, and it's our understanding that if you are elected, you won't be able to hold the two positions. And since your decision will impact so strongly upon the COA and the senior center, we just wondered what your plans might be.
What my plans might be? Basically, well, number one, prior to agreeing to run again, I agreed to run again after I already had this position. Prior to that, we had talked to town council. We got one answer. And one answer was.
When you say we is you
Town administrator.
and you.
Well, I didn't talk to her directly, Mike Canales. Didn't have permission to speak to town council at that point.
Roxanne, could you speak up just a little bit, please? Speak up.
Oh, you can't hear me? I'm sorry. But anyway, at any rate, so there was one answer, and one was that I could continue and I just couldn't get paid. And I was willing to do that if I won the election. Okay. However, as it turns out, apparently there's a federal law that says you cannot volunteer and work for nothing. which would mean if I get elected, I would have to resign the position as Council on Aging Director. And that's just the law. So that's how it is.
And that's a federal law, it's not a town bylaw?
No, that's a federal law.
Okay.
So
Okay,
that's what has to happen.
so if you should win, you will resign as director.
I would have to, yes.
And you're not willing to make a choice now. I mean, you have us in limbo. We are literally in limbo.
You are not in
because-
limbo because I have been working all this time. At this point, I have put in an additional, I think, 19 and a half hours over and above the 18 hours per week that's required for the position. I am not being paid, and I'm doing this right now as a volunteer.
Understood. But there was another candidate that it was a tough decision between the two of you. If you weren't keeping us in limbo, rather than having to advertise your job and go through the whole hiring process again, we could just be contacting that other applicant. So that's what I mean by in limbo. I mean, I would think the honorable thing to do, as a matter of fact, you hadn't even mentioned it today, until Diane mentioned it, would to be honest with your Council on Aging board and make a decision.
I don't need to make a decision right now. And I did talk to you and Jack when you were in my office after I finally agreed that, okay, I will run again. And that was when I was already in this position. I had made that
Your
decision.
first day in this position, you pulled papers.
I'm
your
excusing
first-
myself from this. I'm not going to be subjected to this.
Do that. Okay, let's go on with our meeting. You can add that the director has excused herself.
Wrote that down.
Most unfortunate. Okay, let's move on to,
I would like to make a suggestion. We need Michael's leadership on this. So we can make a decision as a board how we feel about the directorship position, because it is personnel. I would like to know if we could have a specific executive meeting, so we can openly discuss how we feel about things. And then, is it possible to go into executive session at some point? If we announce it properly, and say, rather than discuss now, or we just.
You shouldn't, this matter is not something the board should be discussing.
It's not.
just walked out on our meeting.
Okay.
All right, we'll have to.
Actually, it should not have been discussed in a public setup to begin with because it was personnel action.
Well, I, as the chairperson, don't know where to take this further because it seems as though if we misstepped, I apologize as a chairperson for that. But it was contested. Perhaps I shouldn't have taken it as far as I did, and I apologize for that, but it became challenging. I myself don't know what to do now.
I said that we move on to getting policy together and activities, monthly luncheons, COA trips, as is on the agenda, because no matter who's director, we still have to have policy. And we are in the middle of, what's the word that you said, reorganizing.
Yes.
And so let's continue with the agenda and reorganize.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I agree with Jack.
I agree.
All right, moving on.
It's already been, we've already discussed quite thoroughly the communication and outreach policy that, and that's the last thing under the activities here. And I'll just recoup that we feel that newsletters, no matter what time, and quarterly, and flyers are very important. That to disseminate those papers, we could mail them and get a cost analysis as to what would be best, and pretty much continue along what we introduced when we were reorganizing, was to do those flyers and newsletter, make sure that the website is up to date, okay, and that and any other community organization we can tap into, make announcements, and use the local media and also word of mouth. Okay, so I think we have a pretty good game plan of communication, and so for next time we're just going to learn a cost analysis.
Yes.
And make a final decision on that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. The one that's up top here and listed is activities. You know, what are our expectations in terms of activities and the budget of activities, and who teaches these activities, and how are they brought in? I mean, is it, you know, are we just going to say, as we said before, just get whatever we can to get as many people in here, or do we want to go a specific way, or I don't know, you know?
Yeah, I think it needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
And I guess this is when we're supposed to be discussing it.
Yeah. So how do we, you know, how do we feel about the kind of activities? I think that we ought to try to expand from what we have now. We sort of put a hold on it while things were happening, but we're at a spot that, you know, to offer more activities, and my God, use Monday and Friday because they're not, and go in the afternoon and evenings. You know, so what areas of activities would you like to see us expand into? I think arts.
The arts, absolutely. Which would include doing classes, painting classes, crafts. We're in the Berkshires. We could be accessing dance companies, theatrical companies, whatever, to come in, for instance, for the monthly lunch to do
Presentation.
in a wonderful gymnasium with the stage.
In terms of classes, I think that there's a real benefit of having limited time classes that, you know, to do a songwriting session for 10 or, you know, or whatever,
Right.
you know. So we'll go with short-term classes as well as
Short-term, yeah.
activities, right?
Yes.
Permanent activities, okay.
I would like to see games such as a bridge group and lessons. As we
And
discussed with Roxanne, I would love to see a weekly coffee cafe. And in that, we could be doing weekly news, doing news from the New York Times, from our Boston Globe, since we're from Massachusetts and not New York. It would be, you know.
all right. Right now, in terms of activities, I think everybody's being paid an honorarium. Is it across the board? Everybody get when they come in and do an activity, are they paid? Is everybody paid?
No, thus far, when we were
Yeah.
doing it, it was just, I only paid the poet.
No, I'm not talking about the luncheon activity. I'm talking about quite frankly, do you get paid to lead the walking group?
No.
I
Okay,
won't.
so there's an inconsistency of people who lead because the yoga people do.
Do get paid, correct.
Yoga people do,
Bingo people don't.
Single
no.
people don't.
Do we want consistency on the leadership of those, or should we have each of them brought up individually, or?
That's what I think, each one individually. If we want something that is, can only be done through somebody that would be paid and we think it's valuable enough, well, yes.
Okay,
Would I, as doing my little walking club, be insulted? No, I'm volunteering my time to do that.
Do we think that there's a mandatory population needed for continuation of activities? Do we need more than a certain amount of people to continue? Or again, is it up to the individual group?
The individual activity and who it targets. And,
Okay.
don't you think individual?
Yeah.
Okay, so when somebody, a yoga person who's being paid gets only 2 people here, should we continue the class and continue to pay?
Yeah, I think that's questionable.
Exactly.
At what point, how many attendees do you have to have in order to continue with the program? I think,
Yeah, put a
might-
minimum number on it.
Okay,
Right.
and how does that happen?
Very good point.
The director brings it up to us and says, listen, there's only, 1 person that's been going to yoga.
yeah.
Yes, it would have to be the director letting us know because we
Okay, or
would.
would they just go to Michael and the person just go to Michael and say, do we make that decision or does the administration make the decision?
That's a good question and we need to
Yeah,
clarify
it is
that.
a good question.
Yes.
Okay. In the housing authority, when things are happening up at Heaton Court, do you go to the board to say, we're not going to do this activity anymore? I'm just looking for precedent.
I generally get permission to do larger things, like, let's talk about the tag and art scale. I don't do things like that unless my board approves.
Okay.
I love that yoga class up there on Mondays. I know sometimes she only gets 3 people, but it's still good for us. I have 52 people up there. So there's my plug for yoga up there.
The chair yoga.
The
chair yoga.
yeah.
Which if we had that kind of feedback about a current yoga class, there's 3 people, but it's worth it, well, let's continue.
Sometimes we have 6. I would say there's usually a core 3 that love it, that live there, that come.
And if we were faced with that situation, we would say, okay, how can we promote a larger population, rather than cancel it? And then if we promote it and it still doesn't work, then we cancel it. Okay. Okay. Anything else on activities? Okay, how about luncheons? Let's deal with the most important thing, budget, all right? Should there be a limit?
Yes.
Of how much?
I don't know that I'm prepared, especially right now.
Yeah, okay,
Discuss it. I'm a little rattled. Sorry.
okay. Okay, so I'll write limit with a question mark, okay? How about a timeline? It should be announced 2 months, a month ahead of time, 2 months ahead of time?
Absolutely a month ahead of time.
At least a month.
And it should be planned for 2 to 3 months ahead of time so that you can get good,
Feedback. Good RSVs, fees.
no, not for that. I mean, to get adequate lecturers or entertainment. You need to plan more than a month in advance.
Okay. The way we've been doing, the way the luncheons have been done is one person sort of takes the leadership of the food and gets a volunteer workforce. Do you think that that's a way to continue that,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Trips,
We discussed,
has been, yeah. Okay,
communication and outreach has been discussed.
exactly. Good.
Can we go on to our next meeting?
Let's open forum.
Open forum.
don't see any.
Yeah, I'm ready to call this meeting. Our next meeting should be May 10th, Wednesday. All in agreement?
At 10 o'clock a.m., right?
Yes.
Right.
Can we adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.